when they leave that night around midnight, the boat's going pretty slow. They're just putting along. I mean, this was supposed to be a date night. And at some point, they wanted to go downtown, and I think Paul wanted to have a shot. At least that's what the testimony is. Mm-hmm. He'd already had a lot of beer. And so you see surveillance video from the day dock. You see the boat come underneath the main bridge there, coming out of Beaufort, headed over into Ladies Island. You see it come under the bridge, no problem, come up, circles around, and ultimately docks, and they go in there. They're in Luther's about 9 minutes. They come back out. You got a bunch of kids, not a care in the world.
Is he still using the fake ID at that point?
He did use the same ID in Luther's, yeah.
Okay.
That he used to buy the alcohol at Parker's, which was his brother's ID.
Okay.
And, they get back in the boat. Now, as the crow flies, from the time they get in the boat to where the crash happens, I'd be surprised if it's much more than 1.5 miles.
Oh, interesting.
It's not far. And so 3/4 of a mile from downtown is the only other bridge they go under. He goes under that bridge in the middle of the pilings are more spaced out. They're really not pilings there. It's a big concrete structure, but he goes through that no problem, right in the middle of it, at least on the trail.
Okay.
And then when they exit the main river, they get into Archer's Creek, and the way that you go straight towards Paris Island, and then it parallels Paris Island, then it makes another dog leg, and then makes the final approach, which is just a straight shot to where you were there on the creek. But I mean, it's what happens when a 19-year-old kid's drunk and his girlfriend's angry at him. That's the problem, and that's the problem with kids drinking. Everything's fine until it's not.
That alcohol, to your point, I mean, he was a point? Did he blow a .28, or did they take blood on him?
They took blood on him.
Okay, well, there you go.
That was several hours later. So yeah, it was it's a 28 or a 25, one of those two.
Yeah, so he's on his that BA is on its way up, blood alcohol level, and the other side of it is if he makes spontaneous statements, right? That there's an officer there to hear them and to document. So do we have any evidence of that in the ambulance, or can you even talk about that yet?
There are no statements of Paul that are documented by any law enforcement officer, to my recollection, that were at the scene initially responding. Now, there are some statements that may be attributed to the kids generally, but by the time he gets into the hospital, some of the hospital attendants attribute statements to him in written statements. But no, I don't think most of the law enforcement that responded, that's not why. They weren't looking to document how drunk he was, get him in front of a video camera. That's not what happened.
Any reason, do we know, or can you go that route yet?
Well, sure. I mean, I think I've gone that route. I mean, who he was.
Interesting. So the name of it itself.
Yeah.
You know what's fascinating when you hear that comment from the officer, who says, who this is, and good luck, right? Or something to that effect, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Anthony asked one of the sheriff's deputies if he knows who he is.
Yeah. Do you know where else we saw that same behavior? At the murder scene.
Yeah. If
we go back and we watch the body camera of the officers, the deputies that are there at the time, and they're all going, this Paul Murdaugh, and Alex Murdaugh. And you can just see this look of, well, good luck with that. And, God bless you for, some folks. I mean, I'm a straight shooter. I tell it the way it is. And, for law enforcement just to kind of blow that off when you have a missing 19-year-old in the water, and you have Go ahead.
You know, part of what they say is, so the sheriff's department's there, then Port Royal Police is there, there are MPs that are there
Yeah.
responding because it's right there at the mouth of Paris Island. But the sheriff's deputies almost all say we don't investigate boat crashes. We were just securing the scene. Well, you know, I think it's generally accepted if you're just securing the scene. Part of that is securing the evidence, document. You know the people who are gonna investigate it won't be there for 2 hours, and you also know that things like video and the intoxicated driver uh, is going to that opportunity is going to be lost if you wait 2 hours.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's common sense. I mean, it's called the police academy.
Yeah.
You're right. You know, guys, let's talk about alcohol related incidents. And, you know, I mean, if you've got, first of all, you've got people going to the hospital, with serious injuries. You've got, you know, alcohol and all the other symptomologies that come around with it. You know, the smell of alcohol, the dilated pupils, the red eyes, the slurred speech, yada, yada, yada. And you just go down the list of your, you know, your training. Okay? And, you know, nobody's thinking, you know, hey, maybe we should throw some tape up here and lock this down while we're looking for this little girl. You know, and I call her, excuse me, for, you know, because she's somebody's child,
Right.
and she's only 19. And now you have this, you know, this persona come into the scenario, and, you know, they go out of protocol. I understand the MPs. That's not their jurisdiction. You know, that's a different game, but the SO and whoever else was there right on the scene. And if I'm going to be interesting to see how this all comes out and how that plays out for you at the trial, because that is definitely out of protocol.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems with law enforcement investigation. I mean, you know, I even in the murder trial, I testified to the grand jury investigation, state grand jury investigation into the investigation of the crash, the criminal aspect of it. So, yeah, there was.
And I'm 10,000% back the blue, 20,000%. Okay. But I don't want those people like that in the profession if they can't do the job, you know, because here we're having a conversation about it and going, you got a 19-year-old girl who's dead and you smell alcohol and you're not going through proper protocol. There's your boy right there. He's up behind you. I mean, it just goes again to show you the power that Murdaugh family was yielding.
Well, you know, I mean, one of the things you said is that they're not competent. I don't think this was a incompetency issues. I mean, these were deliberate decisions and the way things were handled. And there's going to be evidence that's going to come out that will show just that. I mean, these people acted deliberately and they knew what they were doing or not doing.
And that's even worse.
The boat first impacts what's called the dolphin head. So if you recall, there are 3 pilings that are sort of lashed together in front of the bridge.
I saw that.
And I think that the main purpose is to sort of break up debris so that in these tidal creeks, you don't get all the weeds and debris that hang up on the bridge itself. But so it hits the dolphin head, and it's like a seesaw, a lever. I mean, the people in the front of the boat don't feel a whole lot of the impact. They do, but the people in the back of the boat, and most of the movement is in the back of the boat. You know, it's sort of the opposite of where's the smoothest place to ride going. Well, it's in the back where the boat's doing the least moving, you know, over the rough waves. And so when the boat strikes the piling, Mallory and Anthony are thrown out. Paul is standing up. The boat itself is a center console, but the steering wheel is off to Paul's side. So he's very close to the edge, easy for him to flip out. And she strikes her head, most probably on that dolphin head. And then the boat gets redirected hard to the right and sort of goes up on the bank there. As the tide recedes and the boat's left on the rocks there at the base of the bridge.
So it's like this and then this, almost
Yes.
like a careening situation.
Yep.
And it does it look? I mean, the damage looks like it was to the majority of it was on what side exactly?
It's almost in the center, but a little bit to the left side, so the driver's side.
Okay. And so it would be kind of like this here.
That's right.
And keep me honest, okay? Is that look right? Like he's deflecting, like he impacts and it deflects off.
That's right. And and it's, I don't know, it's not very far, 10 or 12 feet to the right where
Right.
it strikes next the pylon. So it almost makes a 90-degree turn, just straight in and then 90s over onto the bank. It hits.
And who's launched out at that point? We know Mallory, and Connor. Does Connor go in the water too?
No. So Connor is to the right of the center console. There's some rod holders.
Okay.
There's a bar. He gets thrown into those. He breaks his jaw. He's got a laceration to the left side. And those rod holders on the right-hand side are broken as he's thrown into them. Again, it's just physical evidence that indicates he wasn't behind the wheel. So Paul goes out. Anthony and Mallory. Anthony is Mallory's boyfriend.
His boyfriend, right.
They both go out. So the two girls in the front and Connor stay in the boat, and then the ones in the back, and then Paul go out.
So he hits those rod holders and busts his jaw wide open. And did he have to get a lot of surgery for that to this date?
I think he had a plate put in. It wasn't not a. He had a fracture in his jaw, sort of about somewhere right in here.
Oh my!
Where he was thrown into it. He had surgery for it.
Wow. And what about, didn't one of the girls have a pretty heavy laceration or cuts?
So Morgan Dowdy was sitting in the front of the boat, and her hand suffered a pretty significant injury. I think she's had 3 surgeries on that. It was almost like a deglove sort of injury. Her hand is mashed between the boat and the pylon.
And then, of course, the worst. I mean, Mallory's deceased, and they find her 5 to 10 days later.
I think it's 8 days. She's about 5 miles away.
Yeah, that's very, very sad. I mean,
Paul didn't have any real injuries. He's just some minor scratches. He had his clothes off when he went in the water, so he ended up getting some scratches apparently on the barnacles of the pylons as he got out or something.
Why were his clothes off?
Apparently that was the thing he would do when he'd get drunk and angry. So,
okay, let's go over that. Break that down.
Yeah. If you've heard some of the video there from the scene with the Anthony and that officer asked him, the one with no clothes on, that's Paul. So Paul comes out of the water with no clothes on. He goes into the water with no clothes on. Well, he's got his boxers on or whatever those he was wearing. And then when you see him wheeled in, strapped to the gurney at the hospital, he's still just wearing his underwear. Paul had consumed, I think, 19 drinks, including the 2 shots.
Wow.
That he got at Luther's. But he had a lot to drink before he had those 2 shots. And so the bar was in. The bar has settled the claims against it with the same ID that Paul used at Parker's.